Hey, folks, welcome to Down the Road. We've got a lot to do today. Daryl Richardson's going to join us a little bit later. I want to see if Daryl can control the wind. You know, starting in January, it's been nothing but windy. It made for a terrible winter. I'm 60 years old, and that might be the worst winter that I remember going through, just in terms of the wind and everything that came along with it. And then you add into the summer. We've had one good weekend in the summer, maybe Memorial Day weekend, but a couple weekends ago was the first weekend we had in the summer that made me go, all right, we're going to get some good weather. This past weekend again, big time winds. The weekend before that, big time winds. And all I want is the type of weather where you're not going to lose your golf ball easily. I can find a way to lose it on my own, but not easily just by going ahead and hitting one up in the air, and the type of weather where you can take your granddaughter out on your fishing boat instead of sitting on the dock, which is exactly what I had to do this weekend. Obviously, on Friday, the Roe v. Wade decision to overturn Roe v. Wade happened, and it got a reaction. In Fargo, over 1,000 people came to protest, and they were mad. They're upset, and they're willing to give up part of their day to go let people know that. Also, nationwide, that's a small number compared to what happened nationwide. Women and men made their voices heard. Now, whether or not it makes a difference, I think we all know the answer. Probably not. The Supreme Court knew they were going to take some heat on this, thus taking the decision and placing it out there on a Friday where they could get out of town and not have to deal with everything that you're looking at on your screen right now. What courage, right? But here's the point. I believe that the Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe lied to the committee as they went about getting approved, getting to that point where the Senate would confirm them. I think they lied. I think you can go back and you can see what Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Comey Barrett said, and you can easily find that they lied because they were asked about this. They talked about it being established law. They talked about themselves not being individuals that were going to change things. And, and I think a lot of people feel deceived. Now, what can they do about it? Well, the only thing to do about it is federally to place something into law that undoes exactly what they did by overturning Roe v. Wade. Will they? You and I both know they won't. You and I both know they won't. So 2/3 of the country's mad, and polls show that. Every poll shows that. The 2/3 of this country have made their mind up that, nope, this isn't something they want overturned in one form or another. But it is. It is. And in North Dakota, the polls that I have seen, everyone thinks ultra-conservative North Dakota. You know what? In North Dakota, the polls I've seen support in one form or another the right for a woman to make choices, and the type of choices that deal with her body, the type of choices where decisions are made between the individual and the physician in terms of the life, health of the mother, and the circumstances of how that pregnancy took place in the beginning. So with that, I want to visit with Katie Christensen. Now, Katie is with North Dakota Planned Parenthood, and she's with us. Let's join her right now. Katie, good to have you on Down the Road.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah, we did. We did. It still stung a lot, but we were fearful that this date was going to come.
It was. And it's in terms of disappointment, as the father of 2 daughters and a wife and 5 sisters, and a right that they all had knowing that their daughters weren't going to have, and as myself, someone who wouldn't consider abortion. That wasn't an option for Sue and I. We were 21 and pregnant and decided to have that baby, but we also don't believe we should be making decisions for others. And so, my point is, all of that right, all of that, that choice now is gone. Speak to that, what that means for America.
I think it's absolutely terrifying what it means for America, and I think the outcomes are. I don't think we quite know the harmful effects of this yet, but we can certainly predict based on what a lot of research tells us about banning abortion. I think that we're going to see a rise in maternal mortality. We actually have rates in the United States right now that are rising when it comes to maternal mortality. And so I think to take abortion away from people is only going to increase that. We're going to see more women and children living in poverty. There is no doubt about that. I mean, the numbers already show that if abortion is out of reach for somebody, they're far more likely to end up living in poverty. And we also see that for a lot of women, having a child with a violent partner keeps them connected to that violent partner. And we see that when somebody is denied abortion, it's harder for them to get away from that partner. And so I think we're going to see increases in that interpersonal, that partner violent, the violence between a woman and her partner.
There's absolutely no question that the largest reason polls show and data shows of why women choose to have an abortion is economic.
Yes.
And the state of North Dakota, which years ago made sure they were ready for a ruling like this to end abortion in North Dakota. The state of North Dakota has many opportunities to take the economic problems that come with having a child away, and yet they have chose not to. Speak to that if you would.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, you are spot on with that. I mean, I think if this was really truly about the health and well-being of that child after they were born, we would see a childcare being easy to access and having it be quality and having it be affordable. We would actually see a lot of support for things like maternity and paternity leave, where we would see that the state and businesses would really want to support parents after they have a child and caring for that child early on. We would even see things like pre-K programs being funded so that we could get our kids into schooling better. You would see things like free and affordable lunch being accessible. So I think you're completely right that we're so focused on controlling the body and not necessarily on supporting the child and the family once the child enters the world.
There's a lot of people that make the argument that the choice was already made by a woman. That she chose to have sex, and that by having sex, because of that, she became pregnant, and by becoming pregnant, no longer should there be a choice. Speak to that if you would.
I mean, I think that just gets really complicated and really quite judgmental, that we know that people end up in different situations for so many different reasons. And I think, frankly, the whole reason that Roe v. Wade was founded in the first place was it was based on privacy. And we don't know exactly what happens that gets a person into a situation where they're pregnant. And actually, along those lines, we do know that in the United States, almost 50% of pregnancies are unintended. And we know that families and children do better when they can plan and space their pregnancies for when they're prepared to handle them. So that means that 50% of pregnancies in the U.S. right now happen to people who were not planning that. And in some situations they are embraced, and in some situations it can be a real financial burden. It can be a burden on the relationship. And so I think that's a rather judgmental place when we hear people saying, well, she knew what she was getting herself into.
Well, here's a little thing that I think people ignore when they're having this conversation. People have sex.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, people have sex, and some of those individuals that have sex aren't prepared, aren't ready to raise children yet. And so one of the arguments other arguments that they make is that, look, if you're not ready, have the baby. And if you have the baby, we'll find a home for the baby. We'll use adoption. Your thoughts on that?
I would say, so I personally think, and I think the Organization of Planned Parenthood, we stand very much in support of what that person wants to choose to do. So parenting, adoption, and abortion, we see those as equally valid, equal viable options. And ultimately, it is not up to us or to the government to tell that person what to do. And adoption is an option that some people choose. And it fits with their values, it fits with the timing, and that's what they want to do. But I don't think that we can force people into carrying a pregnancy that they don't want to carry. And again, pregnancy in and of itself does not come without risk. I mean, there can be some real physical and emotional consequences that a person has to manage when they are pregnant.
So when you look at this decision, do you see judges, Supreme Court justices, that lied?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we were misled, if we were lied. There's definitely something sketchy going on there when we look back at these nominees and we see that they all seem to acknowledge precedents and then not, now that we're here in this situation.
To me, there's absolutely no question of that.
Yeah.
There's no question when you ask where people were at with Roe v. Wade, and they said it's established law.
Yeah.
And I'm not someone to shake up the apple cart type of a speech and then instantly move past that. I want to talk about it from a perspective of a woman who's in an abusive relationship. I mean, we can talk about incest. We can talk about rape, which every time that I talk about incest, I think it is rape. Mm-hmm. And so we can talk about the extreme side of this. But just the woman, after 50 years of precedent, after 50 years of having abortion, do you think people understand how many people that are sitting right next to us have used abortion?
Oh, heavens, no. No. I mean, abortion is so stigmatized in our country that, I mean, we all know and love someone who's had an abortion. Mm-hmm. You probably just don't realize it. I mean, it's estimated that about 1 in 4 women will have an abortion by the time they're in their mid-40s. And I think even for me, like when I first got my job at Planned Parenthood, people started coming out of the woodwork sharing their abortion stories with me, but they would have never shared them with me prior to that because now they know I'm a safe space. So, I think when we walk around and we're making all these really judgmental comments about abortion, you're actually harming people who could be sitting right next to you, who could be your colleague, who could be your neighbor. And I think it is not well understood how common this procedure is and how often the everyday person that you interact with actually has either sought abortion or knows and loves someone that has.
Before we head to a break, and I'm a little bit late here, but before we head to a break, I have to ask this because it's all placed upon the woman. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is.
Yes.
It's thrust upon you, and you're the one that has to deal with it. Whereas the man can easily pay for it, and the problem goes away, or easily run away from it. In the worst case scenario, pay a little child support at another day. Do you think the public and a bunch of men deciding this is right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. I mean, I think we do have a lot of people making decisions about women's health care that have no idea what it's like to have a uterus.
Yeah.
I mean, not even just pregnancy, like menstruation, birth, mammograms, all of that. Just no clue about what it's like to actually manage this body.
The other thing I would add to that is if, in fact, they're going to do this, which they did, then should fathers be paying child support while the baby, if it's a baby, is in the womb?
Okay, so I actually have really mixed feelings about that because clearly I want some accountability placed. I mean, all pregnancies, intended or not, start with a man, right? I mean, you got to get the sperm from somewhere. But I also would be really hesitant that I think one of the reasons that people seek abortion is to distance themselves from that person, to somehow be able to get away from them. So I do kind of have mixed feelings about, like, what if we required some type of child support from conception? Then is a person going to be tied to an abusive partner, and it's going to be even more difficult for them to get away.
Welcome back to Down the Road. We're talking about the overturn of Roe v. Wade last Friday with Katie Christensen, the head of North Dakota Planned Parenthood. And Katie, we were talking before the break about how this would put some women, their lives in danger. I mean, the truth of the matter is many people who choose to have an abortion are in an abusive relationship. And many of the fathers don't want the child. They don't, for a number of reasons, they don't want the child. And to me, that's one of the most scary parts of all of this. With the North Dakota trigger laws, you look at the life and the health of a mother. Is that one of the conditions? Is one of the conditions potential depression because of suicide? I mean, what does your organization believe?
Well, obviously, we believe that anybody should be able to access an abortion regardless of the reason. But I think the language in the trigger law is quite terrifying because it does say that there's an exception if the pregnant person's life is in danger. But the real question is then who gets to determine that? And it actually says life is in danger, not health. So it's like this has to be a life or death situation before the state of North Dakota thinks it's okay for somebody to access an abortion. So, I mean, who gets to determine that? Who gets to determine what is considered a life or death situation?
So here's where I struggle. The individuals that are celebrating today, those individuals are out there saying that this is all about life, that is a human being, and what you're doing is murdering a baby. And yet a number of the states, if the Supreme Court is going to rule what they rule, which is based upon that decision, then why would they allow it in certain states? Why would they say, okay, this is what we believe, but we'll leave it to the states to do?
Yeah, and I think that's actually what's really quite terrifying about this situation is that I mean, there's just so many absurdities to saying that this is a state decision for starters, but I think that anti-abortion movement is not, this is a step for them, but I think ultimately they want to ban abortion nationwide.
Well, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
They've made that perfectly clear. When somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
Right.
Right. And to me, the individuals that want to completely ban it are the people that are more honest.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I might disagree with them, but they're certainly more honest.
Right. Yeah, don't pretend like you believe in precedents or you value precedents and then turn around and not do it. So
but
just say it. Yeah.
I believe it, but
exactly.
Some of those individuals to me are the ones that are basically liars when they look at you. Now, when it comes to other issues about this, when it comes to the really tough issues of, let's throw it out there. In Mississippi, a 13-year-old could be raped by her father and be forced to carry that baby to term. Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you deal with something that is that idiotic?
I don't. I mean, to me, that is just flat out cruel because you are literally seeing that 13-year-old person as a vessel. Like you're seeing them as just this object that is meant to grow that fetus into a baby. Like you don't even care about the impact that it has on a 13-year-old child's emotional development, physical development. It's terrifying.
So over the weekend, through no organization other than one male saying, let's get together.
Yes.
Let's all get together and make a statement. Close to 1,000 people, or some saying over 1,000 people, decided to give up part of their day, part of their weekend to go and make that statement. Then individuals, because the abortion clinic here in Fargo is being moved to Moorhead, part of those individuals started opening up their checkbook and putting their money where their mouth is. And as of our conversation right now, $653,656 has been raised to move that clinic. Did you ever see that coming?
No. I mean, I know that people are mad. I know they're motivated. I know they want change. I just hear so many people saying, what do I do? What do I do? What can I do? And I think actually supporting the clinic in their move, the turnout has been amazing. I mean, it's a lot of time and a lot of money to move a clinic and reestablish yourself, to have all those supplies. And so I think the community is showing Red River Women's Clinic that we want abortion access to continue in this region, and we are here to support you and make that happen.
Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit because corporate America has made a decision about, and some companies. Dick's Sporting Goods is one that is saying, look, if one of our employees needs this type of health care, we will pay up to $4,000 to get that individual to a place where they can find that type of health care. Do you think you're going to see more of that?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, obviously, our ultimate hope is that abortion could be restored and that people wouldn't have to go through all these hoops to get there. But yeah, I mean, I think that we're going to have to see whether it's businesses or organizations or individuals stepping up to make sure that abortion is still accessible. And even before this ruling, we knew that abortion was hard to access for certain people. Like if you do not have access to money to drive yourself, 400 miles to the closest abortion clinic, or if you don't have childcare to watch your children, if you don't have money for a plane ticket. We knew that. So I think what Dick's Sporting Good is doing and all these other organizations, they're trying to show that, we are here to eliminate these barriers. The barriers already existed, but now they're growing. It's going to be so much harder for people in certain areas to access abortion.
I want to talk a little bit about the court itself, because their whole answer is local control, local control, local control. And when that argument was made to me when I was a legislator for 14 years, I would always look at them and say, where does that stop? Does it stop at the county level? Does it stop at the township level? Does it stop at the city level? Does it stop anywhere? Well, wait a second. Does it stop in the individual's home making their own choice at local control? So if you look at that argument of a city, or I should say a state with local control, the state of Virginia one time determined, in my lifetime, determined that a black woman is allowed to marry a white man. That's what was determined, that you could have interracial marriage, and Virginia fought that. As a state, they said this is state and local control. Clarence Thomas is black. Mm-hmm. His wife is white. And he just voted under the whole premise and the basis of local control, states can decide this. I'd like your take on that.
It does baffles me. Like it kind of hurts my brain to even try to even think about this, is to really think like, why do our state legislators, our state lawmakers get to determine what type of health care the people in their state can access and cannot access? I mean, that's basically what the Supreme Court is saying when they say it's up to the states. So basically you're saying, like, if you live in Bismarck, North Dakota, and all those legislators that end up in Bismarck every other year, if they don't like abortion, you don't get to access it here. It's more difficult for you. But if you live in California or if you live in one of these other states, it's like, sure, you can access it. Like, why are our healthcare decisions left up to the lawmakers, our state lawmakers? That makes zero sense to me. And you're right. I mean, like, when we look at different laws that have been passed over time at state levels, it's really quite terrifying.
Is this the left's fault?
Oh, gosh, whose fault is? I feel like it's a perfect storm, honestly. I mean, like, let's look back at Obama. He had a Supreme Court nominee ready to go, and it was blocked for months and months and months. And then we see our previous president rushed one through at the very end. And so
But I'm talking about the voters.
The voters?
The right has told people who they are.
Yep, you're right.
And of course, one of the big issues that they said time and time again was control of the Supreme Court. They got it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, elections have consequences, and I think we didn't show up when we needed to. So
let's talk about the midterms, because with the economy the way it is, with inflation, even though I think the economy is doing very well in terms of trade, and people haven't slowed down traveling wise with the higher gas prices, the truth of the matter is there is inflation, and the perception by many in the public is being out there and out there and out there that the economy is actually tanking, when we're reducing, I would add, the national debt. All of that being said, if voters see the economy as the number one issue in the fall, do you think that Democrats will be there with this as an issue to turn out and vote?
I hope so. I mean, the midterms are always interesting, right? Because it's like whoever kind of gains control of the presidency, you always see them suffer a little bit in that first midterm. But I'm hoping right now that our voters are engaged and they are angry and they see that elections have consequences and they're going to pay attention to this issue right here in front of us.
Last word comes from you on this issue. What do you have to say?
Actually, along those same lines, I would say elections have consequences, and we have elections coming up here in November, and I think people need to pay attention to who they want making decisions and show up and vote that way.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times. And my name is Susan Collins.
Oh.
Yeah.